The last fight from Nashville that I'll go in depth on is one where I had a lot of information coming into this fight. I didn't really want to get too specific about it in the preview show. And I guess now that it's over and now that I've kind of talked to some people who've been involved, I feel like I can say a little bit more than I had said before. So just to kind of clear this up, I train at New Breed Jiu-Jitsu Academy, which is also where Eddie Wineland trains and where he does his camp. So I kind of saw him training in preparation for this fight. I had a rough idea of what his game plan was. I wasn't like briefed on it or anything. Obviously, there's no need to tell anyone other than Eddie Wineland specifically what you're looking for, but you can kind of tell by what you see in sparring, what you're seeing in drilling, what the idea is. And what I had noticed coming into this fight is that Eddie was really ready to take on a guy who was going to take some chances offensively, go for some crazy kicks, maybe some crazy punches, really being able to counter that and land his own hard shots. And headed into this fight, when the fight was first announced, I thought it was a really bad matchup for Eddie because of the speed difference. But the more I saw him spar and the more I saw him kind of adjust with that kind of a game plan, the more I felt like this was going to be a much closer fight than anyone really anticipated. And it seems like Dodson was aware of that too. I don't know whether his game plan changed, whether he got any kind of intel, or maybe it's just knowing you're fighting a guy like Eddie, you got to be careful. So coming into when this fight, once it happened, it just kind of became a thing where Dodson wasn't really doing a whole lot of the aggressive stuff that you're used to seeing him do. He wasn't throwing a lot of crazy kicks. He wasn't trying to like leap across the cage and use his speed offensively as much. It was more just he was keeping his distance well. Anytime Eddie would try to punch, he'd get out of the way, get out really quick. There was some countering from him, but a lot of it was just he'd kind of land one shot here or there. It'd be like one shot, two shot. But there weren't like really any big combos landed from either guy. And just like by the end of the fight, it just felt like it was a 15-minute sparring match where Eddie never really got his offense off and Dodson never really took too many chances. So if we're going to look at it from Dodson's standpoint, for him, he's a guy who ranked at number 7, where I think he's ranked a little lower than he probably deserves to be. He had that loss to Lineker, but that was a fight where I still feel like he got robbed in that decision. I think Dodson did win that fight. And if Dodson beats Lineker, then all of a sudden it's going to be him who's fighting TJ Dillashaw for a shot at the title, not Lineker. I don't know that Dodson beats Dillashaw again. He's obviously beaten him before, so you can't really count him out. And really, in that specific matchup, if you've been knocked out by a guy once, it can kind of change how you fight him, whereas the fight with Lineker, Dillashaw didn't really have anything hanging over his head like that. So with this win, it seems like the top 3 guys are pretty tied up right now, where TJ's got a fight with Cody. You've got Dominic Cruz, who's just getting healthy right now, and it sounds like he would either be returning for a super fight with Demetrius by the time he's ready to come back, or he'd be fighting for the title. On top of that, I think a guy like Jimmy Rivera is... You got Jimmy Rivera, but you've also got Lineker. Lineker and Dodson just fought, so I don't know that that's a fight you're going to make again. But you can possibly give John Dodson Jimmy Rivera at this point. I think that'd be a very interesting fight. Or depending on how the fight with Garbrandt and Dillashaw goes, if Dillashaw loses, perhaps you can put Dillashaw and Dodson together. But again, that fight's kind of down the line as far as it being in July. Right now we're in April. Does Dodson want to wait 3 months to find out who his opponent might be? And then obviously if Dillashaw gets hurt in that fight, he's going to need a lot of time for the next fight. So that could be a really long layoff for Dodson. I don't know if he wants that. So it seems to me like his options are kind of limited. You'd like to see him against a guy who's hanging around the top 3, top 4, but it seems like Rivera might be the guy who he gets put up against, which isn't a bad fight, but it's not exactly one that's going to spring him right away into the title picture if he does win it. For Wineland, he was hanging outside of the top 15. He got his fight with Frankie Saenz, who was ranked in the top 15 at the time. Was able to get a knockout win there. He fought Takeda Mizugaki, got another knockout. And now with the loss against Dodson, it kind of pushes him back again. As far as the matchmaking goes, I don't know who the UFC or who Sean Shelby would be looking to put him up against at this point. You could look at another top 15 guy. You can look at a veteran, not necessarily Mizugaki because they just fought, but someone like that. It doesn't seem like at this point a title run is imminent for Eddie Wineland, so you probably want to give him another guy who's kind of on the outside the top 15, whether you're going to test a prospect or give him a veteran. But either way, it was a tough matchup for Eddie. Eddie's got a style that is pretty particular. It's one of those styles where he's a very, very difficult boxer to deal with. He hits incredibly hard. He's got a very unique style to him. He's a tough guy to go after because he's really good at counter-punching you. If you back up too much, though, he can kind of corner you and crack you pretty hard, too. If you're going to try to grapple him, he's a very good defensive wrestler. You get him down, he's very good at getting back to his feet. So if you're looking at a style that's going to give him problems, you're looking at a guy who's going to say, okay, fine, I'm going to strike with him and I'm going to hopefully not get caught by his power. We're looking for a guy who's going to say, I'm going to be able to grapple him and actually be able to control him. And really, there haven't been a whole lot of guys who have been terribly dominant on either end. You've had Johnny Eduardo, who's obviously a top Muay Thai guy out from Brazil. He was very successful standing up. And you had Brian Caraway, who was able to get the takedowns and be able to control once he got on the ground. But for the guys who haven't been able to dominate on one end or the other, Eddie's been a very difficult fight for them. And there are a lot of guys in the top 15 who I don't really see being able to dominate on one end or the other. So Eddie can still be in the top 15. He can still beat some very good guys, but I'm not sure who he's going to be matched up with next.